Hi, my name is Dan Hauptman, and I'm one of your instructional coaches in the Palmdale School District. We're going to be taking a look at Infinite Campus's behavior management. And there's a couple things that you need to know before we look at Infinite Campus's behavior management. And the goal is to make sure that we have normalized how we use behavior management throughout the district. A couple things you need to know. First of all, we need to drive home the message with our teachers. Details. Those details that teachers use is what makes your job as the person resolving the conflict in Infinite Campus so much easier. So we need to make sure that those details are in. We need to make sure that whoever's referring has accurately noted the date and time of the incident. It's very often that something happens during passing periods or during a recess, and a student gets sent to the office, and then the teacher goes through and enters it into Infinite Campus as a referral, and they don't change the time. It needs to make sure it reads the time of the incident. For you need to make sure you change the referral type, and I'll point that out as we work through behavior management. And also keep in mind that suspension starts at the suspension of instruction. So for example, if you suspend a student during lunch and they haven't finished the rest of their day because they're going home due to the suspension, that is considered day one. So day one, so let's say you suspend a student for 2 days. Day one would be the day he was suspended. That finishes off the instructional day. That's 1 day. The next day, the following day, they are suspended. And then the 2 days after the incident is the day that they would return. And again, we'll talk about that as we go through behavior management. A couple more things to take note. Stay on top of your submitted referrals and make sure that any in progress gets changed to complete. Any incident types that are administration referrals, they need to be changed by the administrator. Teachers, once they submit, have no way to change that information. You need to do that as the administrator. Keep in mind that the PLP log is for teachers to document when they have interactions with students or parents. So the idea is that they are documenting as the interactions happen. And if there is no referral for an incident, the teachers should be documenting that interaction in the PLP log. All events must have a resolution. If it's a state code incident, it needs a state code resolution. If a statutory offense was not committed, a state resolution should not be used. Keep that in mind. There's a little more information here about the 300 code, and I'll let you read that on your own. When 48900/15 codes are being used as a resolution, 300 state codes should also be added. For example, lunch detention or counseling also needs the 300 code. Our CalPads administrator sent this out to all admins, and whether you saw it or not, you can find this document by going to bit.ly/I C lowercase CALPADS. So that's bit.ly/I C lowercase CalPads. It is case sensitive and you must be logged into your PST Google account. On that note, let's take a look at behavior management in Infinite Campus. All right, so as you can see, I'm already in ClassLink. I've cleaned up ClassLink a little bit, so you can see I've made nice little folders for all of my little icons. And I'm going to go to my PSD folder, and I'm going to open up Infinite Campus. Infinite Campus is going to take me to my announcements page, but if I scroll all the way down, you'll see where all the behavior incidents are that have been referred to admin. Specific admin. So if they choose all the admin, you would see whatever gets referred to you. If I want to take a quick look at that, I'm going to click on it, and it'll give me a quick synopsis of what the teacher has submitted or whatever the staff is that's submitted. And I can do one of two things from here. I can either click on the incident ID, which will take me directly to that incident, or I can click on behavior management. Either one will work. I'm going to go ahead and click on behavior management, which will take me to the behavior management console. Now at the top, you can see that we have these filters: submitted, in progress, submitted, or in progress, or complete. So this is a combination of two: submitted or in progress, submitted only, in progress only, and then complete. We'll talk about the complete here in a little bit. Now, teachers can refer a student for an award. Maybe they've been caught good doing something really nice or really good. They can be referred to an award. And so you would click on award and you'll be able to see just the awards or just the discipline. So it's kind of nice that you can do both. So the incident we're going to take a look at is the very top one. And so you can see that the status on this is in progress. We'll talk about complete, like I said, a little bit later. So the incident was about throwing rocks. It happened during the lineup after the whistle blew to end recess, outside during hours at my lineup area. Now, we talked earlier about details and about date and time being specific. It's very often during passing periods or during recesses, just like I said earlier, where the referrals get put in after the fact. So as you're going through the referrals and you take a look at the time of incident, you notice that this time is outside of school hours, you will need to change the date and time to the correct date and time. Remind your staff this is a vital part of the referral process and it needs to be accurate. All right, we're going to go right into the referral. So if you can see here, referral to administrator from teacher, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I've got all the students that were involved. And so I've started my investigation and I found out that there was another student, but I don't know who that other student is. So I'm going to continue my investigation, but I'm going to continue with these students here. Now, we need to change this event type to what it really is. Now, teachers only get a few things, including referral to administrator. So they really should only be using the referral to administrator. You as the admin or the person dealing with the behavior afterwards needs to change it to the correct code that goes along with the infraction. I'm going to change this because it was throwing rocks and caused injury, and I'll show you where that is. I'm going to change it to 900B, 48900B. Now, everything that the teacher has put in has followed. For example, there's a small cut on the victim's leg, provided medical attention, that's important. AP, that's the student that was the offender, was throwing rocks at LP, LP being Lassie Fido. We've instructed our teachers to only use initials. Whenever we use the weapons educational code, we're going to change that weapon down here to other weapon, or if it was one with a handgun, shotgun, or other firearm, you can change that as well. But I'm going to use other weapon, and I'm going to say rocks. There we go. So Lassie was the victim. Now let's take a look at Astro. Astro was the offender. So there was no injury to Astro, but Astro Fido was throwing rocks. Now, if you refer the law, that's what's going to get clicked here. But if not, we're going to go right to weapon, other weapon, rocks. James was another victim, but there was no injury to James, so no medical attention was provided. Astro Fido was throwing rocks at both LP, Lassie Fido, and JP, James Fido. Again, the weapon, rocks. Snoopy Fido was a witness. So Astro Fido was throwing rocks at Lassie Fido and James Fido. Snoopy Fido witnessed the event. He wasn't injured. He wasn't part of the law, but the weapon was rocks. And now I can go ahead and save. So I have my event. I have the ed code that goes along with it. But I find out that I need to add in another offender. This person was part of it as well. So I'm going to add a participant. Notice I am not adding it here. I'm adding it under the original ed code. So I'm going to put in Fido. That's one of our fake students. And this one was Goofy because he's always goofing around. This one, there was no injury, but he was a participant. No medical service because he wasn't injured. He was a participant. And now I can add to the details. So Goofy Fido provided the rocks and the idea to Astro Fido. One of the things that we stressed with the teachers is to make sure we're checking grammar and spelling when we're looking at details. That's important because oftentimes, including really what matters for you guys as admin, because when you go to print off the sheet that goes home with the student, we want to make sure all of that is grammatically correct. You'd be surprised. So we just want to make sure we're checking that grammar. So other weapon, the rocks carried over, and now I can save. And now I've finished my investigation. Notice all the students are under the same ID. So if it's the single incident, we want to make sure all involved are under that same ID. All right, now, so let's take a look at adding a resolution. So when we're talking about resolution types, we want to make sure we can kind of group these guys together as much as possible. It just makes less clicking around Infinite Campus. So if you have resolution types that are going to be identical, group those students together in the apply to area. But when you have one student that is getting a much different resolution, we want to make sure that they are being pulled out of that group, and it is very, very specific. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my first student. He's the one who was throwing rocks. So I'm going to go ahead and suspend him for 2 days. Make sure that the assigning date, the resolution assigning date, is the correct day, and make sure that the resolution start date is the first day that they would miss instruction. So that's day 1. And so that's going to happen at 11 a.m. So day 1, day 2 would be, so if the 9th is day 1, the 10th would be day 2. So the last day would be the 10th, and that would be at the end of school. I'm going to go ahead and say 3 o'clock p.m. I have my duration in school days. Again, be specific with the dates. My attendance code is going to be suspended by admin. Do not use without paperwork. I'm going to go through the paperwork as we get to the end of all of this, because all of our students are probably going to need some sort of paperwork. Behavior admin staff, make sure you choose yourself. And in the details, make sure you give as many details as possible. AP is being suspended for throwing rocks and injuring students. Check your grammar, make sure it's very specific. Make sure it's correct, make sure that there are no mistakes that need to be fixed. Underneath, under expulsion modification, that stays the same. Next 2 boxes stay the same as well. They should stay blank. Now, if at any time you think those need to be changed, check with student services first to make sure that you are giving them the right codes for each of these, because those do make a difference. I'm going to check for attendance conflicts. I have no conflicts detected, so now I can save. And now I've got my first resolution. Now, during my investigation, I did find that everyone had a little part to play in this incident. So I'm going to add a resolution, and everyone is going to go through restorative justice. Now, we do have this 300 other means of correction. That would be like your on-campus suspension. We don't want to use the 100 for on-campus because it's an other means of correction. But in this case, because I'm going to use the restorative justice program, I'm going to go ahead and use this one. So let me give it the date the incident happened. So again, be specific with the date. And they are going to start the restorative justice program about the same time as the offender comes back to school. So that would be the 11th. And they're going to start that at the beginning of their school day. And they're going to go through the end of the week, which would be a couple days. So we'll see here. So we'll go 1 to the 12th. We'll go all the way to the 15th. And we'll say the end of the school day. Again, if on the restorative justice types, this type of resolution, you don't necessarily need a time. It just helps with the data. There we go. So in school days, that would be 3 school days. Remember, we need to assign a staff. And I can put here that students will, and again, I'm going to check my grammar. Students will be meeting with the restorative justice team to reflect on actions and how to better, checking that grammar, resolve conflict. Underneath here, my 300 is going to stay the same. I'm not going to touch the second drop down. Now, because I'm providing instructional support, we're going to change this to school or district personnel. And I'm going to add this to all of my students. Everyone is going to participate because everyone had a part to play in the incident. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now they all have their incident IDs. And now I can save and move on with the process of suspension for my first student. There we go. All right, now that I'm done with behavior management, now it's time to move over to the PLP log and print the suspension letter for Mr. Fido. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to search for Mr. Fido. And it was Astro. There he is. And so now I'm going to come into the PLP log, which is under student information, and I'm going to go to general. From here, I'm going to go to documents, and I'm going to open up a new document. So I'm going to come here to create custom form, and I'm going to drop down. I'm going to go to suspension letter and make sure that I'm getting the data from the right school, especially if you are assigned to multiple schools. You want to make sure that you are in the right school that you are suspending from. And now I'm going to create the document. And it's going to ask me to choose which incident we are suspending for. So let's see here. It looks like it's this first one right here at the top. This is the first time that he was suspended, but now this is the second time. And then from here, we can go ahead and create form. And this is the form that we're going to print. Now from here, I'm going to make sure that everything is filled out correctly, including my information here. This is going to be your last chance to check grammar. And then I need to also check yeses and nos in these boxes. So an informal conference was held. Yes. During the conference, the administrator discussed previous interventions with the student. Yes. Student was informed of the reason for suspension and given the opportunity to explain. Yes. When you notified the parent by phone, I talked to Mrs. Fido. And then the final part is the parent conference appointment. We wish to cooperate with you in an effort to avoid further behavior problems. A conference regarding this matter has been scheduled for. This typically happens on the day that they are to return from their suspension. So in this case, on the 10th. And that would happen at hopefully the beginning of school. We'll go ahead and say 7:30 a.m. Your presence is required by law. If you have any questions, please contact. And then this is where you would put in your name and the phone number to reach you. Once you are done, and let me come back up here, total days suspended this year. This does need to be filled out, so make sure you get the total days so far that year. In this case, it's only 2, and there was 1 prior. So now that I've checked over this one more time, make sure that your date is correct. There we go. And now once I'm done, I can now save. And I can now print this document. Oh, let me select it and print it. And there we go. Here's the document that goes home with all of your answers in there, all the information, and print. Now, when the student returns, what we want to do is make sure when you have this meeting with the parent, you're all done. Come back into behavior management, select the incident, and once everyone is done, we need to make sure that we complete this incident and save it. And what you'll notice is now my incident is now taken care of. It's gone. It is now under the complete, which you would find if I were to search for complete. And there it is. It is important for the data pulls that incidents are being marked complete. On that same note, there are a lot of places that are very important for those data pools. Make sure you pay attention to those red highlighted areas, and if you just aren't sure, contact Student Services to get clarification. Have a great day.